Hi there, my name is Jonathan Lay, and this video is just to explain how I'm doing a time-lapse photo using Lightroom and software called LRTimelapse. So what I've done here is I've taken 209 images and loaded them into Lightroom of this scene here, and I've got them arranged here. The first image in the sequence is there, and the very last image in the sequence is at the end. The first thing I want to do is look at the first image and apply my develop settings like I want it to look. So what I'm going to do in this particular instance is I like the crop to be tight to start with, and at the end I'm going to make it a much wider crop so it'll look like the camera is kind of panning. All these images were taken in SRAW formats, which gives me the files aren't that huge, but gives me a lot of leeway to do develop settings like I want. So I get the first image like I want. I can move the crop around, adjust the exposure, all these settings over here on the right that you can see, the vibrance like I want, the brightness, everything else. And even the white balance, I can change that like I like. And then I do a Control-A to select all the images and hit the sync button. And I want to sync everything. So everything that's in there I'm going to synchronize. Okay, so I do that. Now I go to the very last image in the sequence. And what I want to do on this one, if I hit the crop overlay, I want it to be a much wider pan, and I'm using a 16:9 aspect ratio, which is for high definition video. And I'm going to kind of make that a little bigger that way and a little bigger that way. Make sure that the horizon's straight. And now also the light has changed a little bit in this image, so it's gotten a little brighter as the day wore on. It was only 15 minutes, but it did get brighter. I'm going to kind of reduce the brightness a little bit here, make this a little more dramatic scene, maybe increase the contrast a little bit, maybe increase the vibrance a little bit, just to kind of give it a little more of a dynamic look. Okay, so that's great. So now the very last image is different than all the rest of the images. So what I really want to do is I want a smooth transition from the first image to the last image, and there's a program called LRTimelapse I can use to do that. So I select all the images. I want to go up to the top toolbar here, and I want to be in the library module, and I want to be on grid view to get the thing to work correctly. There will be an option here called metadata, and you want to do save metadata to files. So what this does is it takes all the settings that you just created in the develop module and writes them to actual files on your hard disk. So task is completed, and it really helps to put all these files in one single folder with no other files that aren't part of the time lapse in that folder. So that folder is only the time lapse. It works much better with this other software, which I'm going to open right now, and this is called LRTimelapse. It's available for download on LRTimelapse.com. It's free. You can send a donation to the author. Highly encourage you to do that. So you scroll to the directory where the time-lapse photos are. So I put them in a folder here called Time-Lapse. You can see there's 209 images. And it'll immediately read in all the metadata that you've just written to the files from Lightroom. And so you can see the very first image is here. It's image 2856, and it's got these different crop settings, brightness, vibrance, etc. settings. And then if I scroll all the way to the bottom, the very last image has got different settings. And all you have to do here, it's one simple button, and if I hit the linear button here, it'll do an automatic basic scaling of all the settings from the beginning to the last. So I'm going to do that. It just takes an instant, and you can kind of see here with this orange line shows how the image has changed over time. This blue line shows how the brightness changes over the period. There's a lot more to this software and a lot more we can do. But if you go to LRTimelapse.com, there's some more in-depth tutorials about how to use some of the advanced features of this software. So after I've written all these settings, or created all these settings that I want, I do save, and that'll save it, the metadata, and you can see 209 files successfully saved. So it saves it to the files again. It overwrites what I had in Lightroom. And now I want to go back to Lightroom, just where I was, and just do metadata. I want to read metadata from files. I'm going to read all that data that I just, and it says, yes, it'll overwrite the stuff that's in Lightroom now. Read it. And it'll overwrite all that data with what I've just created in LRTimelapse. And the result will be a smooth transition from the first image to the last one. So that it'll kind of look more smooth. So if I select the very first image and I start kind of going forward, you can see that it's hard to see in this, but the crop will slowly change. It's still loading the files. Just give it 1 second here. If I go somewhere, so that's the very first image. If I go somewhere in the middle of the sequence, you can see it'll be kind of halfway between that one and the end. So there we go. There's that one right in the middle. If I go to the end, there's the cropping where it looks quite different. So the next thing I want to do is I want to have all these images selected still and hit export. And I'm going to export these to JPEG images. I like to rename them just in a sequence. It makes it easier to identify them later. So I'll call them Sparks because it's called Sparks Lake, where this is. And you want the width and height settings to be set for, I set them for 1080p, which is 1920 by 1280 pixels. I'm probably going to scale this down to a 720p video later, but this gives me some flexibility if I want to make like a Blu-ray disc of them later. And that's pretty much it. You just hit export, and then you'll wind up with a sequence of sequentially numbered files that are each slightly different than the one previous to it. And I'll go on to the next video.